Oh, well, he's a sports broadcaster, that's his job, so he loves sports analysis.
Okay, everyone, at 7 o'clock, welcome to the April 8th regular city council meeting in Cross Lake. Let's stand and do the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We're calling order.
Okay, first I'm going to make a motion for the approval of the additions to the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Decox, Herzog, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Consent calendar, notice the public, all items here are listed, considered to be routine by the city council, and we will be acted on by one motion. There will be no separate discussion on these items unless a citizen or council member so requests. Everybody look it over.
Yes.
Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Public forum, no action will be taken on any of the issues raised. If appropriate, the issue will be placed on the agenda for a future council meeting. Speaker must state their name and address. Each speaker is given 3-minute time limit. Anybody have any public forum?
Tom Swenson, 36036 West Shore Drive. Item E1 regarding the record retention schedule. I hope there's a very thorough discussion of that tonight. I think it's ridiculous that staff would even put forward a recommendation to destroy the videotapes of meetings after 3 months. In my 33 years in city government, many times, things don't come up in the first 3 or 4 months, and you have to go back and look at those. I would hope the city would look at a minimum of keeping 5 years, possibly even 10 years. You could put 5 years worth of CDs in a desk drawer. There's no storage problem. I just don't understand why you would want to destroy the record. I understand that, you know, the minutes are the official record, but in my experience, many times you'll have a long discussion and the minutes reflect a lengthy discussion ensued regarding this issue, blah, 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 and then you have a motion and action, and it doesn't give any detail on what was said. So yeah, I'm 100% opposed to that recommendation, and I hope the council has a thorough discussion of that before it would move forward with destroying the tapes. Just as an example, what's being put forward, the meeting tonight is being videotaped. In a month, the minutes will be approved for this meeting, and 3 months later, the disc for what happened at this meeting would be destroyed. That's ridiculous.
Thank you, Tom. Marcia's got something to say.
Good evening. I'm Marcia Seibert-Bolz. I live at 37668 Lone Beach Trail. And I concur with Tom Swenson on the fact that I don't think that the videos should be destroyed after 3 months after the council has approved the minutes. I have in the past come in and looked at videos 2 years back because a project took longer than 2 years just to find out all the things that had happened. So I definitely think that the city council should approve a retention schedule of a minimum of 5 years for the videos and possibly 10. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcia. Is there anybody else? Okay, let's move on to the mayor's report.
I think
First-
one more.
Oh, I'm sorry, Bill.
Hi, I'm Bill Monroe, live at 37313 County Road 66. I'm speaking as a Cross Lake citizen, not representing the Northland Press, nor the Chamber of Commerce, where I have part-time jobs. And I'm reading, and I'm sorry about that, but I want to make sure I do this, get this right. During my wife Chris's recent battle with breast cancer, there were 2 occasions when we called a 911 for help. Both calls were made in the middle of the night. Within a few minutes, first responders were at our home on the scene. The first man through the door, both times, was Fire Chief Chip Lohmiller. And I can't tell you how much relief I felt when I saw that friendly face come through our door. In both cases, Chris was transported to St. Joseph's Hospital in Brainerd. The second time that they came, the first responders had to literally save her life with CPR before they could make that trip to Brainerd. I first want to express my thanks to Chip and to the North Memorial Ambulance professionals, and professionals they are, who were there for Chris and for our family when we desperately needed them. It's so reassuring to know that this community offers such great emergency service care for its citizens. Secondly, I want to make a comment about conversations I've heard while covering these meetings during the past 2 years. Whenever Chip makes his annual report and recites the total number of calls, which include the number of, quote, EMS, unquote, calls. I know from hearing conversations firsthand from people that some people discount those statistics, placing value mainly on the actual fire calls and not on the EMS calls. Well, my personal experience has given me a new appreciation for the value of those EMS calls. Finally, I know that you as members of the council know that your job one here is to provide for the public's safety above everything else that you do. And I believe that you also know that when you make a final decision about what you're going to do, what options you choose to do with the City Hall building, what you're actually doing, you're not really talking about a building. What you're actually deciding is how well the city is going to be able to respond to public safety, fire, and medical emergencies as this community continues to grow. I ask you to please not to lose sight of the fact that you want to position this community to be able to respond quickly and professionally to any Cross Lake family's emergency in the future. Please listen carefully to our first responders and give them the facilities they need to keep them and to keep us safe. In my book, they are our heroes. Thank you.
Thank you much, Bill. Well taken. Is there anybody else? I think a lot of people share your thoughts with that, Bill.
I'm Leah Hagerston at Sandpoint Villas. And I just wanted to, Bill had a good idea on Saturday. I thought it was a good idea, and I just wanted to let you guys know in support of a multifamily housing project that's being proposed by Babinski and others maybe in the future to do an orientation on our comprehensive plan so that everybody understands the terminology, thinking maybe that Tad Erickson or somebody could probably do a quick 45-minute or an hour before our planning commission makes any more judgments. I just wanted to dispel some of the things that are going on about multifamily housing and say that the comp plan does support it. Multifamily housing is also by definition the 86-unit senior living complex that was just approved. The apartment falls underneath that. The site that's currently being proposed by Babinski currently is stated in the comprehensive plan. Our comprehensive plan also is promoting POD, which is pedestrian-oriented development. The faces of this resident are hardware store employees, nurses, caregivers in the new facility, servers in our community, Reed's Grocery Store, seasonal employees, Whitefish Lodge and Suites, just to name a few. This is not subsidized housing. This is housing that somebody working at Ace Hardware, Reed's, in the service industry can afford when they share a two-bedroom unit. If 15 homes were to go into the proposed site that the Babinskis are looking at behind Andy's, a 15-unit over-the-counter permit could be issued and 80% of the green space could be taken down, and that is over-the-counter. Nobody has a say in that. They could pull all those trees down right on the road. Whatever 20% they decide to leave, they can. This builder also proposed that they would pay for the road, which I know is a concern of people having to incur those costs, and this project is backed by BLA EDC. If I can have one more minute, I just wanted to thank you, Brad Persons, for the last zoning meeting. I felt like you were the voice of reason. And on another note, I just wanted to thank the council specifically, and Shar and Mike Linus. We just got information on the National Loon Center that the DNR Minnesota Trust Fund accepts our agreement for the city to be the fiscal agent. So thank you.
Thank you, Leah.
Pat Netco, Cross Lake resident and business owner. We had a workshop this last Saturday for our Cross Lakers, which we do annually, and a big part of our discussion was the workforce multifamily housing project going on. And I am stating on behalf of the Cross Lakers and myself that we are strongly in favor of a workforce housing project here in Cross Lake. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. Anybody else? Okay, we'll move on to the mayor's report. First, we have an email from Lori Prem, and I've asked Lori actually to come in and explain what it is. If you'd come up, that'd be awesome.
Thank you, Mayor Nevin and council members for allowing me to speak. I'll keep this brief. I'm Lori Prem, and I live at 34250 Sunrise Boulevard. Wanted to give you a few sobering statistics to grab your attention. And again, I said I'll keep this brief. There are 9,900 foster kids in Minnesota, 840 kids waiting to be adopted, 6,600 homeless youth, and about 39,000 abused children in this state. I am a grant writer, but also a volunteer working for a charitable organization that is going to be doing some new things to try to help these hurting and vulnerable children in Minnesota. Our founders are two moms with one mission. They are stepping up to do something about this situation. They're rolling out a new program across Minnesota starting now in April. There will be an informational event Thursday, April 18th at 6 to 7 p.m. at the Brainerd Public Library. If you have an interest in this type of thing or know someone who does, I would encourage your participation. The founders will speak much more eloquently to the situation than I can do here tonight. There are so many ways for businesses, churches, individuals, families, civic organizations, government leaders, and communities to work together and step up to help these hurting kids. Again, I'll be here later if anyone has more questions, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Lori. Okay, D2 is a request from Emily Food Shelf for 2019 funding. Mike, what is that? Are they asking for a donation, or?
Yes.
Yes.
And is that in our realm of ability to do?
It is.
What have we typically done in the past?
We've never had a food shelf ask for a donation.
Oh, it's the first time? Okay.
That I know of, yeah.
And they're asking for up to $250, if I read that right?
We've never given anything to a Cross Lake food shelf either, so.
I don't know, you guys. Any comments on that?
Good program. I wouldn't have an issue with it.
I agree.
And has the Cross Lake Food Shelf ever come to us and asked for anything? They will now.
Does our city get any benefit from donating here? I'm talking about the residents or people here. You have no way of knowing. Okay.
I don't know, I guess I'll leave it to you to, if somebody wants to make a motion. I'm not sure about it if we don't.
I'll make a motion, we approve it. I
And the
think it's
amount of?
$250. And put it in the budget for future years, because it's probably going to come back again. I think it's a worthy program.
Yeah.
And
So
I'm-
we put $1,000 in the budget, because Cross Lake and Jenkins and the rest of them will come, right? Right?
Okay. I'll second his motion, so we have that in play.
Okay, any other discussion on it? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Now, you want me to read this resolution, I imagine, huh? Resolution accepting donations. Whereas the city of Cross Lake encourages public donation to help defray costs to the general public of providing services and improving the quality of life in Cross Lake. Whereas the city of Cross Lake is generally authorized to accept donations of real and personal property pursuant to Minnesota statute section 465.03 for the benefit of citizens. And whereas the statute 46503 requires that all gifts and donations of real or personal property be accepted only by the adoption of resolution approved by 2/3 of the members of the city council. Whereas the following persons, or entities have donated real and/or personal property as follows. Cross Lake Ideals donated $6,500 for the Lucas CPR machine. Cross Lake Fire Relief Association, $1,163.50 for ladder, hooks, and beanies. I don't know what a beanie is, but. Robert and Sandra Western, $25, Dorothy Sipe Memorial for Fire Department. Pell Foundation, $55, bridge room rental. And whereas the city of Cross Lake will strive to use the donations as intended by the donor, and whereas the city council finds that it is appropriate to accept said donation as offered. Now therefore be it resolved by the city council of the city of Cross Lake that the donations as described above are accepted as allowed by law. Passed this 8th day of April 2019. Is there a motion for that, or that's it? Okay.
I'll make a motion, we accept these great donations.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. D4 is a local sales tax update. Gerald, you're not hiding from me back there, are you? No. Is anybody going to help out with this, or?
I can go ahead and start it. Darrell is welcome to come up.
Yeah, go ahead.
And
Take
correct
over.
what I get wrong or add to, okay? We had a very, very good, positive, constructive trip up to Walker, Minnesota, to talk to the city administrator up there about what they had done and what they perceived that could be done. They had quite a long trip to get theirs through. It started in 2014, and they got it actually started in 2018. It was due to moratorium got on them, and they got rejected, and because they hadn't filed some paper correctly and whatnot. But she gave us a lot of really good information. Starting as you're looking on here, you've got the tax information, you've got commercial, you've got all kinds of the different ones. If you go to where it says Walker sales receipts, I'll just give a quick breakdown on it. In 2018, they collected $212,443.
Got that up on the,
I'm
it's
sorry.
not up
Oh,
on the screen, is it?
just on, what he's talking about is on so
Thank
people
you.
can see it. Okay? And I've got it broken down here, unfortunately. But what they had originally asked for is a 0.5% sales tax. When it all boiled down and they went in for the last try, they asked for 1.5%, thinking the way everything had been going, they would get a 0.5%. Well, they got the whole 1.5%. Go figure. But they took in $637,000 over that amount, which amounted to $212,400 a year when they had expected $180,000 to come in. And it was interesting going through asking about the dynamics and how they compared to Cross Lake. We actually have a bigger city. We have a greater population. We have a greater business community. Our big business community is different than theirs. They do not have a car dealership. They do not have a boat dealership. They don't have any lumber yards. Their biggest business in Walker is Reed's. That's where they get a lot of their from. Theirs passed with a very high percentage of the voters. I think it was 62? 61% that voted for it to pass it. And so we're going to have to watch it as it comes up now, and we're going to have to work through it. Councilmember Schrupp and I had conversation after the meeting, and we also included Mr. Linus into it. And we feel that right now, what we would like to see is 2 council members appointed to it. Unfortunately for Mike, he's going to be the worker bee, so it'll be really 3 people. And Dave and I will sit down and meet with them, as well as hopefully Daryl and Cindy and Leah. We'll sit down and meet also with everyone, because we would like to keep them on, but the committee really will be too. I don't feel, and Dave can put his comments in, I don't feel we need the whole council sitting on this at all.
Right.
Could you touch on the timeline of it,
Well, I think I'm going to.
if it were to proceed?
If we're to proceed, we would have to meet certain deadlines, and I can't tell you the dates right here, right now. This is what we would have to sit down with Mike and lay out and set. But we would have to have everything ready for the 2020 election. There's no elections this year that we can go to, so there's no need to get all excited and start pushing forward real hard. But we will have to stay consistent and stay after it to get it done for ready.
And it does require a public vote for approval.
Yep.
But
At this point, it does.
at this,
There's
right.
2 different legislative things going off, and maybe Daryl can tell us a little better on that.
Darrell Swanson, Dream Island Road. I think our little committee has put together a pretty nice roadmap. I was able to get a hold of and work with Tim Bray, our county engineer. Tim was the one that headed up the investigation for the county on their 0.5% transportation tax. The counties, unlike the municipalities, do not have to have a public vote. They can pass it by resolution, which they did. And that's been in effect since 2016. The local areas, as we talked about, Brainerd, Baxter, they both have a 0.5% sales tax, and of course Walker with the 1.5%. So we were very interested in going up to Walker, as Councilman Herzog was talking about. The study that Tim Bray said really made a lot of difference at the county, and everybody has a copy of it, was a study done by the University of Minnesota Extension Service for community vitality. And they do those all throughout the state of Minnesota. And what it does is they have a methodology which they can go into. But what it basically does is say, this is how much we believe you're going to collect in sales tax at different levels. The county had 1/8%, and 1/4%, and 0.5%. And then who pays for what? And in the county, it happened to be about 50% visitors and about 50% residences. And Tim said it made a big difference when the county commissioners could see that it wasn't just going to fall on all the residents of Crow Wing County. So when we did go and see her name, the city administrator up there is Terry Bjorklund, And she really did everything as far as that was concerned. She worked with a couple of council people. It did pass 61 to 36%, as Councilman Herzog said. And in the first year, we might have gotten a little bit wrong number. I'm not quite sure, but it was, if you want to put that back up again here.
But there's 13 months on that one, Darrell.
Okay.
So I used 12 months as a figure, so I wouldn't mislead people more than.
It was $688,000 for the little city of Walker that they had collected so far since they began their sales tax in 2018. A very impressive figure. And I think finally, there's only one reason for sales tax, and that is to help pay for things, whether it's facilities that we desperately need or whether it's an expansion of the sewer system, whatever it happens to be, so that the burden of the taxation doesn't solely fall on our businesses and on our residents. I think we all would say, and I'm sure Mark Wessels and other realtors will tell you, we pay a lot of taxes. And so the sales tax helps because then visitors who enjoy this wonderful place we call home can help to pay for the infrastructure through a small sales tax of a 0.5%. I happen to drink a lot of lattes, so does my wife, from Pat's. And so my latte would cost me 2 cents more with a 0.5 penny sales tax. So, and I know that not everybody is going to be in favor of it, but I think what happens in these towns where 16 municipalities did approve them last November at the ballot box, I think what happens is the people say, wow, maybe there is another way to go that we can at least get some help in paying for these projects without always going to the property owners.
One of the things that we asked Terry about up there is what percentage did they perceive that the visitors, the weekenders, that type of thing paid versus the full-time residents? And she said they pay far over 50%, did not have a figure she could give us, but she said, I'm sure it's well over 50% that they pay. Two things I guess we need to ask for tonight is one is can we get the direction to have this basically 7-person committee, because Ted Strand has to be an integral part, because he talked about all of the stuff, the infrastructure and stuff, that's Ted Strand. So Ted would have to be an integral part of this as well. And then we would like to have, myself, I'll let Dave speak for himself.
Right.
So I'll make a motion that Dave, you, Mike, Ted, Darrell, Leah,
And Cindy, yeah. Be the
form the committee to carry the.
And the three of us will be the ones that'll have to meet probably the most often. And when we get to certain milestones and certain stumbling blocks, we need to call and ask for help. And you three would be specifically 3 people we would call to ask, if that's okay.
Oh, yes, and Cindy Mugato went with us up to Walker, and she was crucial, to keep our Chamber of Commerce and keep all of our business people in the loop so that they know. And it'd be wonderful if one chamber could talk to the other chamber. Tara Bjorklund told us there was only really one business in town that was concerned, and that was Reed's. They asked some questions, Terry got them the answers, and she hasn't heard anything since. We did ask, how many complaints have you had about the sales tax? She had 1, which was a complaint on something for
$30 purchase.
a $30 purchase.
Darrell, could you talk about what the state is debating right now? Because, and then
Yeah.
we could lead into what we talked about we could do in the meantime.
Yeah, and what the state is doing, and that's why it's really good that we can't have an election until 2020, because the state needs to make a couple of decisions. One of the things that they're looking for, well, let's just backtrack a second to go back to the original. The state used to say that you can either get the enabling legislation from the state, or you can have your vote before you get the enabling legislation for a sales tax. That's how it used to be. And when we tried in whatever it was, Tom, 2002, we decided to go to the state first and then have the vote. Well, the state, as we saw in Walker, they ran into trouble, and so the state didn't even take any action on it. So we'd had to back away. Then in 2011, the state said, well, now what we want you to do is you have the voters approve it first, and then you come in for the enabling legislation. And now this year, they have introduced legislation that is in, at least in the House, there might be a companion bill in the Senate, I don't know, that says, no, let's go back to the deal where you come to the state first, and then you can have a vote. So we have to see what they want to do about that. There's also a piece of legislation, however, that would say that if you have a vote, you don't need the state, that they would give all the municipalities just the outright power to say, if you have a vote and your voters vote for a sales tax, as long as it's within the legal limit, which is a maximum of 1.5% in Minnesota, you can have your sales tax. You don't have to come to the state for enabling legislation. So that whole thing, and you know what happens? Oftentimes in our legislature, nothing. And so it might end up being just the way that it is right now. But we should know that by the end of their legislative session, what's going to happen, and that'll be really good timing for us.
Thank you.
Thank you. So let me just talk a little more. So we don't know what the state's doing, but there are things that we can work on now, and one of them is we have been working on at least a 5-year capital plan. Walker worked on one that was 20 years, and when you work on one that's that long, it tells you what you need money for and how much. And that's what they're going to need in this documentation. So, and you need Public Works, because they're the ones that spend most of the money. So we would pull Ted in and out periodically, but we'd pretty much expand the plans that we've been doing for our budgets every year. The second thing that we need to get on this is the University of Minnesota. There's a study here that they did for Walker, and we talked about how the county was 50-50, 50 from residents, 50% from visitors. We'd like them to go through, and it costs $750 to tell us what the split would be for a destination city like Cross Lake. Is it going to be 70% from visitors and 30 from residents, or whatever? That's a big
Do you know how long
data
it takes
point.
for them to do that?
I don't know if Daryl knows. We don't know at this point,
That would be part of our planning process where.
but we'd like to
we
get
would sit
get it
down and-
rolling now so that we
Yeah.
don't leave it go to the end. But it would be nice to know this because it's a selling point for the program, so.
And I think that's really important, and then they will also look at, we could determine what 3 figures, but, you know, a quarter, a half, 3/4% or whatever, and they could give us feedback as to what we would potentially draw, and then we would have to look at how we do some of these things, because some of the real high-dollar items that do get sold in this city would be taxed at 100% of that sales tax. And that would be a cause for concern for those dealerships and stuff. And we would need to talk about that, what we do there. So there's a lot of stuff has to be ironed out, has to be talked about, and see how it affects us before we say we're going this way or not.
Okay, Shar, do I have a motion on the floor? Or we need to redo that?
You didn't get a second before.
It just got carried away, so can I do another one? Just repeat it? So I'm gonna make a motion to appoint the tax committee.
Okay?
Aaron, Dave, Daryl, Cindy, and Leah Hagerston.
I'll second it.
And Ted, and Mike, yeah.
Yeah.
So you second? All in favor?
Aye.
And then the second one will be for the $750 to do the study, because I think the study is going to give us some answers that we need before we start expending time and so forth.
Okay, so,
And it would read a local option sales tax analysis for Cross Lake, city of Cross
you
Lake.
making that which one are you
Yes,
making? that?
well, it doesn't matter. One can make it. and
I'll
the other
make the
one second.
motion that we
I'll
approve
second it.
$750 to get the local option sales tax analysis
From the
for the city of Cross Lake from the University of Minnesota.
Okay, do we have a second?
I am.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Let me see here, I lost my note. Next is a recommendation for Leah Hagerston to be appointed to the City Tax Committee. We haven't formally done that.
I'll make a motion that we do.
Okay,
I'll second it.
second by Gary. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Now, this is, I'm gonna throw this in at you. I am just gonna kinda make an offering of next Tuesday, the 16th, to meet whoever wants to at the community center in the meeting room. Because I gotta believe there's a lot of the community that's got a whole bunch of questions on what is going on out here. So that's the purpose of it, is just to get into an environment to ask some questions and try to answer them. I may ask one of the other council members to come with. It's not a posted meeting, 6 o'clock. This, I think it's the 16th, isn't it? Tuesday?
Tuesday the 16th?
I don't have a calendar.
Tuesday, the 16th, 6 PM at the community center in the meeting room. I've talked to TJ about it, it's available, and
I'm sorry, what time?
6 PM.
6 PM.
And the purpose is just to encourage questions. So. Okay, city administrators.
Okay,
Oh,
this edition.
oh, yeah. We had a request for support of a children's museum in Pequot Lakes. And I do not know hardly anything about it, so Mr. Linus is going to take over.
Okay, thanks, Dave. Late in the day Friday, as of last Friday, April 5th, I got an email from city administrator at Pequot Lakes requesting for our support for a children's museum. And that information came out of a monthly mayor's meeting that they had over in Pequot last Friday. So what they're asking for is Region 5 over in Staples has identified what they would like to do in building a children's museum in this area. And they're looking for a location to do that. And so you might ask, well, why didn't they ask us? The reason they're looking at a community like Pequot is they're looking for a community that's interested in developing a site or finding one within their community that's on the Highway 210, 371 corridor. And so I believe the Loon Center has already offered a letter of support for that effort for them to get funding for that purpose. And the Cross Lakers. So the number of organizations have already pledged their support. And so what they're asking for us to do, and in speaking with Nancy over at Pequot Lakes, I said, well, who else have you asked? She said, well, we've talked to Breezy Point, we've talked to Jenkins, we've talked to Nisswa, and she'll be reaching out to them to ask them for their support too. But for now, they're asking for our support, and that support comes in the form of a letter of support for them. And what they're trying to do right now is to get all of their information and support for a proposed, identifying a proposed site within the corporate limits of the city of Pequot Lakes. So if the council is interested in supporting that effort, we would send them a letter of support saying we support your effort to that extent.
So they're not asking for financial support, though?
Well, they left it open. If we wanted to do that, we certainly could.
And I don't think we can. We talked about that a little bit before. but-
Yep.
So, whether we ask the community or something, but I don't think.
Sure.
Explain that a little bit. The city cannot.
Generally speaking, the city can't make direct payments to organizations like charter schools, Boy Scouts, the Lions. I'm not sure how it would work with this organization. We could look into that. But what they're asking, the reason they're asking us for their help is because they understand that if they do build a facility of that nature, it would have an impact on the city of Cross Lake, meaning people would potentially, go over there and visit the Children's Museum, similar to what they do down in larger communities. So for now, what they're asking for is a letter from the city to support that effort in obtaining from Region 5 the decision to locate it in Pequot. They've identified I believe they've even identified a couple different options for where they might put that, should they get funding for it.
I am real curious what a children's museum is. But I would voice my support entirely for anything for the kids, so I'll make a motion for that.
I'll second that.
Okay, any conversation? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. And we'll just get updated, I'm sure, right? Whatever.
So we'll get that put together for your signature then, Mayor.
Okay, next is city administrator's report.
Okay, it looks like Shar gave me 11 things to talk about tonight, so I'll try to get through these as we can. The first item is a memo from the clerk, Shar Nelson, dated April 2nd, 2019. The subject is the record retention schedule, and I'm looking at item E1 under my report. The city of Cross Lake adopted the state's record retention schedule in 1994. This schedule is a plan for the management of city records. It lists the names of the records and how long they should be kept. The purpose of a retention schedule is to provide continuing authority to dispose of records. The city also is required to keep a log of destroyed files and the date of destruction. The record retention period of video recordings of the public meetings is 3 months after the minutes of that meeting are approved. The approved minutes are the official record of the meeting, not the video recording. I'm requesting permission to destroy the video recordings of public meetings in accordance with the record retention schedule adopted by the city, and that would have been in 1994. So I guess any questions on that schedule, I would direct.
1994, that was adopted
to the clerk.
94.
Yes,
by the city of Cross Lake.
correct.
And why wasn't it taken out at that time? Why hasn't it been that way ever since?
Videotapes back in 1994 were almost non-existent. So you had them, you got them, and typically they're evidentiary, and if you didn't need them, you really needed to get rid of them. Okay, there was a need to do that. So this was brought to Shar's attention, and she said, well, this is what it says, and we said, why isn't it being talked about? And I was part of that conversation, so I'm going to say it straight up, okay? The thing of it is, if you have a retention schedule, you need to use it. If it's not appropriate or not right, then you need to change it. And I'm not arguing with what Tom or Marcia said, either one of them. Typical retention for this type of data is 7 years. But that's what the Historical Society has pretty much directed over the years.
Change the policy?
Well, we would need to change it, but if you're going to do that, keep in mind the workload you just took a dump on Shar with, because it's not just the videotapes, it's the whole retention schedule that she's going to have to look at.
So should
And
we?
that's work.
Should we look at the whole policy? Because I've never seen it, or not.
The only part of the record retention schedule that we're not following is the video recordings.
Have
Is
we
the
ever-
video.
Everything else, we're following it,
Oh.
And is working.
and it is working.
Then you can isolate the one and just
So
do the
if
one.
you've got the retention program for the video recordings, and it's in place to carry it for 3 months or 13 years, what's the difference? Other than your pile gets bigger.
Well, your pile gets bigger, and once you don't need something in government, you need to get rid of it.
So how?
You need to,
when-
there's certain items you keep forever. You can never destroy. But there's certain items that once they've reached the end of that retention schedule, you need to get rid of it, or you're going to get held liable when you do, and you haven't followed your schedule properly.
Okay, so then I'm going to pursue changing our schedules so that we keep them.
And we can, okay, that's how it is right now.
Yeah,
So
That
where-
motion
when
was
in
made
time?
by
Oh,
a
okay.
council
yeah.
many years ago.
So have we ever tossed any videos? Do we still have all the videos that we've ever,
VHSs,
we even have those?
we even have little tiny micro cassettes.
So we've never tossed a thing yet.
No.
And that stuff.
And
I
I mean,
would-
you can't even, it would be hard to find equipment to place some of that on.
I would say after 10 years, you could probably get rid of it, but I am uncomfortable. The way it goes now is we have this meeting tonight. Next month, we come back, we approve the minutes of this meeting. Oftentimes, I don't remember what I did this morning, and so I got to read through those minutes and say, yep, that's exactly how it went, you know? I want to be able to go back if I
no,
need to.
And
revisit
that's
something.
fine. If the council wants to change it, I have no objection to that. I'm just saying, change it to a realistic number. And personally, I think that number, if you're going to change it, is 7 years. Typically, your police data, all that stuff goes away at 7 years, and then you can just follow in suit right with it, and it becomes an
I'm okay
easier
with that,
routine.
Yeah. Gary, anybody else? have any
I'm
comments?
okay with that.
Makes sense. That's the way the police department works?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna make a motion, we change the retention to 7 years.
Actually, police department gets rid
Taxes.
of, well, we used to. I won't speak for Eric, because I don't know his. But we got rid of hard copy at the end of 3 years on majority. And then after 7 years, we got rid of everything in the computer, everything else. Unless there was a case pending, it was a homicide, sexual assault, there was 2, 3 others in there. But 7 years was a standard.
Okay, so I made a motion to change it to a 7-year retention.
I'll second that.
Motion seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Now, once she's gone through the Historical Society, then anything older than 7 years, she really does need to dispose of. Okay? I mean, so everybody understands that and doesn't question her, because this wasn't her doing tonight. We didn't intend for her to get beaten
Okay,
up.
the next thing on the agenda is, if you want to retain something, you can come in and ask for a copy of it,
Yeah.
so. Okay, so that's good, we'll jump into E2.
All right, thank you. Item E2 is also a memo to the City Council from City Clerk Sharon Elsa dated April 2nd, 2019. The subject is charge for copies of DVDs. The City Council approved the 2019 fee schedule on 12/10/18. The charge for a DVD copy of a public meeting is $10. I have a request from Mayor Nevin to make a copy of every video recording of every meeting where he was in attendance, either as a council member or a mayor. Mayor Nevin would like to have the fee waived. So far, there are approximately 65 DVDs that would need to be copied. The clerk is requesting that if you do want to waive that fee, we would need a council action and motion to do so.
Okay, so I'm requesting that because I want to know what I said or did or committed to or not, and that's a good way for me to do it. And I kind of feel that we do not get paid a fortune up here for the time we spend. And if there's 65, then I owe $650 to date. And I just want to ask you guys, is that something that the city should provide to us being up here if we request it? Is that a fair request or no?
They're on YouTube.
Yeah, I told
Every
Brad
one of
that I'd
them's
pay
on-
for 'em, but I also, as it
Ev-
piled up, I said.
I just
wanna
think
talk
it's,
about it.
we've had other people come in and ask for that, and I think it just doesn't sit well with me.
Okay,
It's, then the policy should say 0, and it takes time to do this. It's my 2 cents worth,
that's
so.
fine, I just want to go through with the
Yeah.
meetings and not do all
Well, we're
65.
keeping 7 years now, so they're
Yeah,
not, they're
I
not
just-
going away.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
I
they're-
just requested to have
Yeah.
my own little library, so.
so,
And can't you come look here, or you can't?
our problem
He
is,
wants his own.
Oh,
yeah,
Can we take Todd, make a comment on this?
Dave just made a comment that they're on YouTube or the website. Special meetings aren't, and that's something I forgot to bring up earlier. I don't understand why on the city website, regular meetings are included, but special meetings are not on the website. Now, I thought it was supposed to be at 6 o'clock tonight. I was here at 6 o'clock and it got canceled, and your audit report is until the 29th. That's an example of a special meeting that, if somebody can't be here for it, it should be on the city website so that people can do it. I don't understand why only regular meetings are put on the city website and not all city meetings, including special meetings and hearings and things like that. And it's the same thing with the agenda packets. Only regular meeting agendas are included on the city website. The agenda and the backup documentation for special meetings, where a lot of action takes place, is not included on the website. So I would ask the city council to consider directing staff to include special meetings on the website and the agenda packets on the website.
Good point.
So what is your policy? Because some of the special meetings are on YouTube. None?
No.
I swear I've seen them on there before.
Since we started doing it, it was just the regular. But
Yeah.
when we started putting them on YouTube.
So we don't even record them then, is what you're saying?
We do.
Oh, we do record them.
Yes.
So we have a record of them, we just don't have the, okay.
Well, I for one am all in favor with keeping everybody as informed as we can keep them, so.
So I
You know,
think,
we actually should back up and take care of the copies of the CDs first.
Yeah.
right.
Let's do one thing. So I'll make a motion that I pay for my own CD copies.
I don't think you need one. I think,
no, I-
I think it's already
We can
stated,
just
right?
let it
Right,
go.
only if you were going to waive it, we would. do
Okay,
the motion.
all right.
Right, right.
So now let's talk about the meetings. Special meetings?
So I think Mr. Swenson was saying posting special meetings on the city website, just the notice of the special meeting?
Those are on there.
Video of the special.
The video.
And on the website, include the agenda packet with on the website with the rest of the regular meeting agenda packets.
I think he's talking all three. Post it that it's happening, record it, and then post the recording. Did I misread that?
No, that's it.
Okay.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I don't have a
I
problem
hope it
with it.
doesn't put too much burden on you, but
Do we need
Yeah.
a motion?
Yeah.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
And just to make that clear, sometimes we do not have the agenda or the packet until the
Late.
day of the meeting. On special, okay, for special meetings.
Yeah. Well, when you can. I mean, that's,
You'll hear about it.
They'll go up eventually.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay, let's move on to item 3 under City Administrator's Report. Item 3 is a memo dated April 2nd, 2019, from the clerk regarding the American Legion to add an outdoor patio. The American Legion has requested permission to add an outdoor patio to the east end of the existing building. The patio will be surrounded by a 54-inch fence, which will be contiguous to the building. The only entrance to the patio will be from inside the building. The Legion will work with planning and zoning regarding land use requirements. Council's approval is requested in accordance with the liquor licensing establishments. And my understanding here is they meet the requirements of planning and zoning, and the reason they need council approval is because this will be an outside
It's an addition.
addition to their liquor
For the
license.
liquor permit.
Okay. And we've done this before. This is not something unique.
No.
Okay.
So just out of curiosity, does our police chief, is there any concerns with doing this by them, or?
He would have to sign off on the
Yeah.
On the permit.
renewal. Eric,
But the liability goes with the Legion, or?
did you have any issues?
I don't have any issues, no.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it to approve.
Okay, motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you. The item 4 under my area is approval to change the date and time of the regular EDA meetings to the first Wednesday of the month at 8:30 a.m. in City Hall. They were currently on Thursdays. We just need a motion from the council to change that to the
I'll
first
make that
Wednesday of the
motion.
month.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Is there a conflict?
Well, the Facilities Committee has been meeting at 8 a.m. that day, haven't they?
This is the first Wednesday?
Wednesday,
The first Wednesday.
just once a month.
First Wednesday, so the first Wednesday Facilities, if they met them, would need it. Gotcha. I'm for it.
Okay.
Aye. Did we vote?
I think we did, yep, motion carried.
Yeah, pulled a fast one on
Good
you.
job, Eric.
Oh, come in.
All right, item number 5 is a letter dated March 8th, 2019, from State Representative Steri Herthaus. The request is a letter of support for a new legislative initiative to reform the local government aid formula. And before we talk about this, just a little background on this. Right now, as of yesterday, there was a another proposal from House Finance Bill 2125. So there's a number of different bills passing through the legislature right now talking about how do we deal with local government aid. Right now, Cross Lake gets zero. There's a proposal, the letter of support for this proposal is to support that we get some minimum amount, whatever that amount is to be determined to. I've heard numbers from anywhere from zero to less than $100,000, but right now we get zero. So this would be a letter from the city supporting the effort to provide small cities like ourselves. I believe there's 95 cities in Minnesota that get zero local government aid. This would allow us to at least get something. So that's the short story on it. So if you'd like to do that, we can put that together for you and get it off to them and support that effort.
Nothing wrong
We
with it.
get nothing now, so
Right.
this would be,
It's
we
worth
do
it.
get something.
So you want a motion for that, Mike?
Yes.
Yep.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you. The next item, item 6, is a letter to the council, just talking a little bit about, it's for information only, so there's no action on it. It's talking about County State 8 Highway 36 and County State 8 Highway 3, for about 0.72 miles northeast of the city of Cross Lake. What they're doing is they're doing some improvements on that, and they're just kind of providing for you as information how they're going about the acquisition information for property owners. It doesn't impact us, but it's information, so if you do get questions on it, you can know how to answer the question, or at least refer them to the county engineer, Tim Bray, okay? Along that same item is a resolution approving a county project within the municipal corporate limits. And this we would have a council action motion on. Typically what happens is when a local government, in this case being the county, is performing a project within your corporate limits, they usually request a resolution approving the county project within the municipal corporate limits. So the resolution reads, whereas plans for project number SAP 018-636-018 showing proposed alignment profiles, bituminous surfacing, drainage improvements, and bridge improvements of County State 8 Highway number 36 within the limits of City of Cross Lake as a county project have been prepared and presented to the city. Now, there be it resolved that plans be in all things approved, dated April 8th, 2019. So they're asking a resolution to support the project, is what it amounts to.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Item number 8 is some information and request for action regarding street improvement authority districts. There's a couple things here. What this is asking to do, and this actually came, Dave Reese forwarded this to us, and what this is asking is for support for legislation that would allow cities to create street improvement districts. It would allow cities to collect fees from property owners within a district to fund municipal maintenance, construction, reconstruction, and facility upgrades. If enacted, this legislation would provide cities with an additional tool to build and maintain city streets. There's a number of these things going through the legislature right now. This is one of them. There's a proposed letter attached to the back of this that's been prepared, kind of a form letter that says, if you support, I'll paraphrase, it says, if you support this effort, please show your support by sending your support in the form of writing that you would support legislation to allow cities to do this. It's another way of financing cities with roads. What you would do is you'd create this district, improvement district, and you would assess property owners, and then over time you would use that money dedicated only for improvements within that district. It's similar to what the city had done a few years ago when we created a reconstruction program. WSN helped us with that at that time, and what we had done is we had created an overall capital plan. We held public hearings, and we said, here's our capital plan for the next 5 years, and we're going to use this and use our road authority to issue bonds so that we don't have to go back to the public or special assessments each time we want to do a road project. This is similar to that in the effect that it would be incorporated into whatever 5-year plan we come up with going forward. If we're allowed to do this, we would identify those projects and you would assess over time, and when the project came up, you would use some of these funds to pay for it.
Is this something that the Public Works should look at and then make a recommendation to us? I mean,
They
They're
could.
working on an assessment plan, is that?
They are.
Yeah.
I don't know if this went
I don't
through
know.
Ted or not.
Ted did not want to take it to the Public Works Commission.
You did not.
He wanted
Okay.
it to come straight to you.
Okay.
So, well, it seems like more work for what we already can do. Is a district going to just incorporate Cross Lake or Cross Lake and Manhattan Beach? And is that when we have to have this? If we're,
You can use it within your own municipal boundaries. It's just another tool, like assessments, that would be at the city's disposal. You don't have to use it. All this is tonight is a letter of support to the legislature that you would like to see them enact the legislation so that you have the ability to use it.
Does it seem like a smart thing to do?
It's another tool, another option for the city into the future.
We don't have to use it if we choose not to.
You don't have to use it.
oh, okay.
It's being supported by the League of Minnesota Cities and put forth for the council consideration.
So I think part of the problem is we don't have a clue how it works. And
Well, you would implement a district, an improvement district. It could be your corporate boundary, and you'd be able to fund your 5-year plan moving forward,
Or a portion of it.
or a portion.
Don't we have a sufficient now?
Just one, maybe another way of saying it, maybe this doesn't help, but right now you can already do that for sewer and water projects. You can create a fee structure and charge sewer and water fees if you did a water system, for you, sewer only, to help pay for the infrastructure. You can't do that under Minnesota law right now for streets. This legislation would allow that. You wouldn't have to do it, but it'd be a way to, you could bill people $42 a month for their little area of town that's going to be used for future road projects. And that would, it's just, instead of doing the assessment process is what we do now. That's the only way you can finance a road other than just general tax dollars. So it just gives, like Dave was saying, it just, now you've got a couple of ways to fund a street project. And then you each time could vote on what makes more sense.
well, I think we should probably go ahead with it, and then if it gets passed, see what it says, and
I don't see any downside.
No,
If you don't
no.
like the look of it, don't ever do it. It just
Right.
allows for that option.
All right, I'll second that motion. All in favor?
Aye.
I guess I made the motion.
Didn't you?
Yeah, yes, I did.
Motion passes, sure.
Yeah, and just for the council's information, there's
Yep.
2 other bills in the legislature related to this topic right now. Remember, the last couple of years, we received roughly about $39,000, $40,000 of general state aid, I'll call it, to be used for roads, because as a city under 5,000 in population, we don't get municipal state aid road funds. And so the last couple of years, the legislature has funded a program where we got some money. We don't know if that's going to be funded yet, so for budget purposes, we make the budget zero on that. This is another option to try to provide cities an alternative to get some money, small cities like ourselves, to pay for their roads. So anyways, item number 9 on my agenda, on this agenda is a memo dated April 2nd, 2019 from the clerk regarding the small wireless facility policy. And what this is, and Chip might be familiar with this because he worked on the Super Bowl here a while ago. And what wireless providers like to do is put cell towers or repeaters or small towers to expand their network when their circuits are full. I'm not familiar with them myself, but they're smaller items where they could put them. Right now, they have the ability to put them in the right-of-way. What we're asking is that we have some control over what they put in there and where they put them and what they look like. And if they do want to put these, smaller type towers on, around our city to expand their capacity, we want them to pay for it. And so if there's any, and we need to get this done, this just came out not too long ago. But the staff is requesting that a $500 permit fee for new small city wireless facilities and a $500 fee to add attendance to existing towers be added to the fee schedule, is what we're looking at for that.
You can't say no to this, if I'm correct. You can direct how it can be done, but you cannot say no.
That's my understanding, yep. So it gives us a little bit of control over.
Well, we went through that when we built new City Hall. We ended up with towers and wires and antennas and radar.
Are they there forever then?
Oh, yeah, they're there forever, and not one of them, or I shouldn't say not one of them, the vast majority had nothing to do with the city.
And they don't pay monthly fees, they just pay a flat fee?
No. You can make them install it, but you have to allow them to drill holes and whatnot.
True.
Just
Allow preemption. The feds can regulate telecommunications, and we have to just obey.
All right.
Well, we have a little bit of discretion. I would recommend doing this. This is not going to give you full regulation, but that's all we're allowed to do.
Okay,
I'll make that
thank you.
motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Okay, we're on item 10, and we'd like to discuss whether or not to open the yard waste disposal at the Public Works facility. And before we get too deep into the yard waste, what Ted is proposing is there's nothing in your packet on this. They're looking at potentially opening it up a couple days a week, sometime maybe midday during the week and then on a Saturday, whatever days that makes sense. And the idea here is to take yard waste, not, contractor yard waste. And looking at this, there's a couple things we need to do to make sure we control it, and we don't get too many things that we don't want, like large trailer loads of stumps and things that show up in the night when you don't want them. So what Ted was looking at, and to make this work, he's looking into an automatic gate, limiting access, and put it on a timer. So he's looking at that, and then probably a couple cameras pointed in the right direction. Wi-Fi cameras, similar to what we have down at the park to look at. We use those right now for what was the skating rink. We're proposing to do something similar down there, because right now, if somebody drives in with a 12-yard dump trailer of logs that they've collected all week and stumps, we don't know who did it. We'd like to prohibit that and just keep it to yard waste.
So it's signed real appropriately that it's not a commercial site.
It is.
It
We
is
will.
a commercial site?
It's not a commercial
Yeah,
site.
it's not a commercial site
For
for
residents.
residents only.
Yep.
Right? 2 days a week.
How can you put a gate there, though? I thought because that guy lived beyond it, a gate was not an option.
Well, we put a timer on it, so it's open during the day when people are there.
But if that owner came in the middle of the night,
The gate would be shut. The gate's shut at night.
so we can block him off from going to his place.
No, we'd work with them and
That's always
provide
been
them
the struggle,
access.
is putting
Yeah,
a gate on it.
because they come in from the backside, and even when they do that, they just dump it right in front of the barricade, is what's been happening.
I just think strict fines and signage, and that's what we do, and put cameras up and enforce it. Yeah. So.
We'll come back to you with what that's going to cost then.
Yeah.
Because we'll need to spend some money to either put cameras up or at least control it to find out who's going in there and when. And
When is he going to open this? Soon?
soon,
We need to get it open.
yeah, we do.
You have a meeting the 29th that can you bring up?
Yep. We can bring it up on the 29th, the proposal to do that later this month.
So will he have a cost by then?
You better.
Okay, all right.
do you need a motion on that?
To
No,
continue?
it's just for information.
Okay.
Because I know it's been a topic of
Yep.
discussion. Okay, finally, number 11. About a week or so ago, we had a discussion with the National Park Service. myself, Ted Strand, John Colstead, and then Leah Hagerston. And one of the issues we talked about was, if you remember, a few years ago, the Minnesota Design Team spent some time up here, and they did certain things like, how do the trails connect with each other? How does the traffic flow through the town? Just different things. How do people get from one place to the next? Either walking or biking or snowmobiling or skateboarding or whatever, or however they get around. So out of that came what was called the Blue Zones Walkability Study. I think some of you remember that, where the Blue Zones group came and gave us some information as a result of that process to say, here's the areas you need to connect, whatever those were. So what's happened is, over the course of the last year or so, we've heard the term, before you do your project, we want a traffic study. We want a roundabout. Why not a stoplight? Let's change the intersection. Let's make access from someplace different. So we talked about a lot of those things, and one of the things John Colstead brought up was, we're not looking at this right. Instead of saying, you're going to build something, I want a traffic study. You're going to build something, I want a traffic study, and so are you. Let's look at the area where we're trying to control the traffic, or what is that intersection that has an impact. And the idea we were floating around was, if you take the crosswalk from the golf course and go all the way down to the intersection at the core, you come up to about the school, and you take that whole area, all that traffic appears to be impacting that intersection, whether it's an apartment building, a grocery store, a bank, a chamber, a senior assisted living, or a golf course, or whatever it is, hardware store. So the idea was to work with the National Park Service and ask them to help us figure out what the best solution for that might look like. And in doing so, they were interested in bringing up part of that connectability study that came out of the Minnesota Design Team and the Blue Zone study, to say, where do we need to connect trails, like from the downtown area to the park, or from the school to the other places in the community, whatever that may be. They were willing to work with us to write a grant to obtain some funding on doing an overall traffic study to determine what might be the best solution, given the different entities that may have an impact on traffic on that intersection. Now, we haven't talked to the county about this at this point. What we were looking for is maybe some very preliminary discussion from the council to say, are you interested in directing staff to do some further research on that and bring something back to you? And what we were looking at was saying, the city's got an interest in what goes through that intersection from a safety perspective, whether it's a crosswalk or a roundabout or a stoplight or more stop signs or whatever it is. But we don't think we should pay for all of it, because you've got other parties that impact that are being asked to have a traffic study to do their project, whatever that project is today or in the future. And at least we'd know. What do you think?
My thoughts are, we want to have an objective traffic study.
Okay.
So if we got the apartment building wanting to come in and ask them to do it, that may not be as objective as we need it to do. We want to look at the big picture, not one part of the picture.
Yep.
And we don't have a clue what that's going to cost?
Right now, we don't. Or Leah does.
Sorry.
Leah Hagerston, Sandpoint Drive. Mike is here too, but we just had to do a traffic study, as Mike stated, by the county, because we were building something new, which was a school, and it was over $7,000 to do that, and it showed no impact.
But it didn't include future things coming, did it?
It just was the school. It was an isolation for the school. It did include that area of that intersection. But the idea that we're floating out, and I'm going to quote you, Mike, is saying a cooperative partnership with interested stakeholders. So that would be anyone that has helped to grow our traffic, both pedestrian, non-motorized, motorized. We have a snowmobile trail, ATV trail that go through there. Or anybody that's proposing
Can you get
would
them
be
to
a shared
contribute?
interest. What?
Can you get them to contribute, do you think?
The idea we're just floating out is that we would like the city's support to continue our group with the National Park Service, to ask these people if they'd be interested in cooperating financially and cooperating to do this. It's actually a traffic and pedestrian study to combine the two. The county just looks at traffic. The National Park Service looks at pedestrians and trails. So that's why we had Ted Strand come and we had TJ and just, locally. And Mike suggested that maybe the city would be a good person to coordinate this and not have to have one person pay for it, not have the city pay for it, not have the Future Loon Center pay for it, or the school. We were a nonprofit Lake Foundation and we had to pay for it.
Well, it's, the objective part of it is what's important to me, is to make sure whoever is doing it is looking at now and into the future what it's gonna be like, because there's so much stuff going on that we can't do it for the school because we got 4 other things that are gonna
Right.
impact it, so.
I do like what you said, though, this cooperation. I think it would be not bias. It would be impartial, or whatever word you said.
Objective is.
Third party.
Objective.
Third party. yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
But, yeah,
if everybody shared in this effort. So we would just like to start talking. I've been called to a few meetings with the county engineer and the county commissioner, and then we called this meeting. So I do have a grant with the National Park Service right now, and they are willing to help us find funds, and they are willing to help us move towards this shared traffic and pedestrian study for our city.
well, if you can keep it objective and at the good of all in the future to come,
Now,
I definitely think it's.
What does the study take into fact? The senior place, the apartment building, the Loon Center? So it is doing the
All the
big
way-
picture.
all the way to the
So,
golf-
okay.
all the way to the golf
I think
course
we
that just
need
put
to
9 holes
support
in.
that. And then the other thing that I found interesting, Leah, that you said was that the apartment developer is willing to contribute to road construction. And I'm not close to the PZ group. Do they know that?
Yeah, they do.
Are they, okay?
That was discussed at the meeting
Because
prior
there's
to...
been a lot of this talk
Yeah.
and nobody knows.
No, there was a
what's
lot of
coming, so that's-
The
conversation.
road construction, yes.
Right, so I think this study is something that we need.
But keep in mind, nothing has been decided. It was strictly discussion at that time, Dave.
And the
Okay.
traffic study is one of the big holdups on
Right.
everything,
What
so.
we're proposing is 4 steps, and the first step is what we're doing tonight, discussing whether the city would help coordinate this with the National Park Service and a couple of citizens. If we can do that, then we'll move forward to try to get the funds collectively to do this, and we'll share the costs and the homework to do the study. Once we get that, we would like to present the study to you, and we'd like to present it to the city openly, transparently, and have discussions about it as a city. How do we want to handle this? Do we just want to slow traffic? Do we want to stop traffic? Do we want a roundabout traffic? How can the snowmobile trail move through there? How can the ATV? How can bicycles? How can people? How can everybody move in the realm that Mike explained, from the golf course down Swan Drive, County Road 366? We do have, and then, so once we get to that step, we do have quite a list of partners that we'd like to engage to actually make it come to fruition. Anybody from private industry to the city, county, the Cross Lakers, Woodside Smith and Nolting. We'd like to include a landscaping discussion, landscaping ordinance, the Parks Department. I can't remember everybody we had, but it would be a lot of fun, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think, no, I just have one comment. I think I just see a lot of cost here, and I just don't want the developers to have the city pay for all the costs to do all the roads. And I don't know how to get my arms around that, because.
But I think what Mike was talking about is drawing them in to pay a share.
Right, but.
Am I,
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay,
what we're trying
that's
to
what
figure
you were
out is.
Right.
It'd be a lot easier if we knew the cost.
Yeah.
Right, but we need an agreement before we make decisions, otherwise it's too late, that's all I'm saying.
So, this is a discussion item. Mike wanted to float this out, but we would, if the city can help coordinate this with the Parks Department or with the National Park Service grant, we should get an estimate.
I agree.
That would be the next step, and then we would go collect our partners to help finance
Figure
it.
out how we're gonna split it up, yeah.
And there would be nothing, they would still have to come back to get money.
Correct.
So this isn't approved, this would be there's no
No.
motion.
Yeah.
Right.
There's
And
no
maybe this-
motion here
Right, there's no
But-
motion.
required.
But
It's
I
a
don't
good
have a
thing.
problem with them working with it to see where it falls.
I think we should move ahead.
Yeah.
Speaking of moving ahead, I'm finally done.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Leah. Commission reports. Chip's up. I'm up. Mayor, council, I just wanted, the first item I have here is, excuse me, training and activities memo showing you all what we've done in the last month. I think, Mr. Mayor, we talked about it at one of our previous meetings that you want to see more information on what we do monthly. So I'm going to add this into, along with our call volume memo every month. So just a little quick review, it just shows some of the training that we did this month. Some of the membership went to an EMS conference. We had our quarterly EMS training. One member went to a live burn training. Our membership had ICS command training and fire behavior training. And some of the activities, just preparing for the St. Patrick's Day Parade, got our wildland equipment ready to go. And we also implemented Station Check, which keeps track of our equipment in our trucks and makes sure everything's there for inventory. So we had about 498 hours in training, 580 hours in activities, and 133 hours in calls. So are your weekly meetings included here, Chip, for your training meetings? We don't have meetings, we have training nights, which is the second and fourth Wednesday, and then.
Is that part of it, is this reflected here?
Yep,
though?
that reflects that.
Okay.
The second thing I have is declaration of equipment surplus. So we have a Ranger that we purchased in 2015, and we had a 2015 Aluma single-axle trailer. Well, in the fall of 2018, the Relief Association purchased a wildland pump sliding unit for the Ranger, and now the trailer is not heavy enough to carry the weight of that Ranger with the water and the pump. So we'd like to declare that trailer as surplus. The Relief Association has already gone out and purchased a tandem axle trailer to carry the weight.
So what happens to it when it's surplus? Do you
We sell it.
sell it?
And there's no other city use for it? I mean, foolish question maybe, but
I can ask Ted or Eric if they need the trailer. It was donated to the fire department, but we can see if anybody else needs it. It's not a very heavy trailer.
yeah. I
It's
get it.
aluminum, so.
Yeah. I do have a question here. Do you have future topics that are coming up for the training? You said second and fourth. I went to the one that one night, and I found that interesting.
Yeah,
and
we
valuable.
have, I have a full schedule. We lay out our training schedule for 6 months. I can post it or leave it in the city hall, but it's posted in our hallway.
Okay, I never walked down the hallway.
So we have training second and fourth Wednesday. If there's a fifth Wednesday, we'll train on that Wednesday, and then we have EMS every other month
Okay,
on the first Wednesday.
okay.
That's all I have, unless you have any questions.
Thanks, Chip.
Motion.
Need a motion. I'll make a motion to sell the
Oh, yeah.
trailer.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Carries.
Thank you.
TJ?
You're not up yet. Sorry, TJ. Good evening, council, mayor. For 22 years now, Cross Lake has had 5 full-time officers. Over that 22 years, the last year and a half, we've met with the council regarding how much busier we're getting, need to cover more hours. Just backfilling vacation, comp time, second car on, that type of thing. What I'm looking at is hiring a 6th full-time officer. During the council discussions last year, we put in money for a 6th full-time position for half the year, give or take. What I would prefer to do is hire from the part-time pool. We have a pool of 8 part-time officers. All of them are ready to go. They could hit the street tomorrow and not have any issue with transition. This position will give us more round-the-clock coverage. It will also allow us that if we have a bigger incident where, say, for instance, the county comes in and they need to help us investigate it, I can take that officer off the road, put them with the county, and they can work together. We had an incident like that, right when I became chief in June, where it would have been nice for us to have an officer there, but we just didn't have the manpower. Like to hire the position by Memorial Day with a 6-month probationary period.
So they all have uniforms already?
Yep.
And equipment gear?
I would
For the
probably
most
have to
part.
purchase another gun, another taser, and some additional equipment, but initial setup, they would be pretty close, ready to go.
So
There
you're-
might be a jacket or
You're
something.
talking about the bulk of the expenses already there.
Bulk of the expenses are already there. They've been trained.
And you're dropping how many part-time staff to get one full-time?
I think we dropped 15,000 out of the part-time budget this year and brought it down to 10 or 12,000, if I recall correctly. I'm not sure of the ballpark number. What I would do is probably go down to 3 part-time officers that we would have, just as a pool to pick from. If we need to cover 2 people have vacation or something, we just need someone else in.
Okay.
This kind of takes me by surprise.
Okay.
So I just would take a little bit of time to think about it. It's another full-time employee that we're putting on. So that's my opinion of it.
We
Just
had it
to
in the
kind of
budget.
give you a little geographic, demographic statistics. Last year, we had just under 2,800 calls. The year before, we had just under 3. Nisswa, 6 full-time officers. Pequot, 6 full-time officers. Breezy Point, 6 full-time officers. And Pequot was the only one that had more calls than we did. And I would just make the assumption, and almost half of those were traffic stops that they had. So when we're on a call and there's another officer on, we're backed up. We can't respond to the medical. We weren't able to respond to Bill's house for his wife because we were on another call. So having a second officer on weekends, overnights would help alleviate that a little bit, allow us to be able to respond to all the calls.
We had this in the budget. We talked about it last year. The city's growing. You're getting rid of part-time people.
You're gonna reduce your part-time hours, so it's
It
it's
makes
paid
sense.
for. I'll make the motion to hire one.
I'll second it.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you. Bill, those were very kind words. The fire department does do a wonderful job, so thank you for those words.
I was going to say that to you before. Bill, thank you for those kind words, and I will bring those words to the membership to let them know, and I thank you for your support. And thank you for having another 6th officer, because that incident I think you were talking about was when we didn't have somebody on. And part of EMS is making sure that you go into a safe, secure scene. Well, the North Ambulance and myself went into a scene that was not safe without a police officer, and we shouldn't have been in there. So to have more of them there to make sure we're safe is a good thing. So thank you.
Okay, okay.
Mayor, council. Item number 1, under my staff report, I have an extension of the natural gas line at the community center. Currently, both garages to the east part of our property, the garden garage and our main maintenance garage. They do not have natural gas lines hooked up to them yet, and we really saw that this year, or this winter, when it was 40 below and our tank was down to 10%. We had to pay a $250 fee extra on top of what we were originally going to get charged to fill that tank because they were so busy filling other tanks. So
What's in the garage you gotta heat?
the groomer, our tractor, the maintenance garage, our truck, gator, mower.
That's where you store all your equipment?
Correct. So I'm just looking for a motion to explore some quotes and see if we can get a price to, if not do it this year, do it next year.
I'll make that motion.
Yeah, I'll second that. Natural gas is definitely cheaper than propane.
Yep. Vote.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Item number 2, Parks and Recreation logo. I brought this up not too long ago at the commission meeting. I described that we do not have a logo as a Parks and Recreation Department. We use the City of Cross Lake logo. We just turn it to a green color. I feel that a logo would establish more marketing. It would help us put it on signs, a brochure, anything that we could put around the city or even throughout other cities to further promote Parks and Recreation Department to give us more of an identity. So I'm looking for a motion to explore some design work and come back next council meeting, if not the other, or the following, to share some drafts for you.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Item number 3, dog park. Now that the snow is melting, we're continuing our steps and planning to finally open the dog park. There are currently 2 fairly large stipulations that we still have yet to complete before we can open the dog park. Number 1, it is a camera to angle towards the opening gate for security reasons and safety. The second one is a berm that separates the neighborhood to the west. Put a berm with 30 trees, and then the dog park. And I'd just like to explore maybe holding off the berm with the 30 trees. We open up the park, see where it goes, and then we can assess if we need that berm with 30 trees after we open it for several months or a month.
Who recommended the 30?
This was the council. Yep.
And
These were the 2 stipulations that the council voted on before the dog park opened.
Were there neighbors concerned? And that's
There were
why-
neighbors concerned, and this is why it's kind of a touchy subject, but right now, there are no leaves on the trees, obviously. And from the dog park entrance, you cannot see the houses to the west. The dog park itself is in kind of a bowl, so where there's primarily the most traffic with dogs and people that are going to be inside that dog park, you're not going to be able to see that from the neighboring houses.
Did the council kind of pacify those neighbors and say we would do this? And now we're gonna say we're not gonna do it?
Well, I'm just kind of worried because the city is not helping out with any labor. So to get this done, the dog park committee is going to have to organize a team to move dirt for berm and 30 trees.
I'm just being a little careful, representation of what we told them then and what we're doing now. I would be a little cautious about that.
Can I get direction to go talk to the neighbors?
Yeah, that'd be
And
awesome.
come back to the next council meeting and decide something
Does
then?
everyone kind of agree that until the need arises, let's try it this way and see what happens? I don't know, I think that'd be a smart way to do it.
Well, that makes sense.
Okay, I'll get back to you on that. Finally, notable updates. Parks and Library Foundation. I was directed by them and also by the Senior Expo Committee to come up with brochures that I can hand out at the Senior Expo booth. This would further promote and market the Cross Lake Community Center and show what we have to offer. I got the 300 back. They turned out pretty nice, and I am going to order 1,000 more, and that is paid by PAL, so it's a pretty awesome deal. We're going to put it throughout businesses of Cross Lake if they so desire, and also I just put a group here at City Hall, and we're going to have it over at the community center so people know what we have to offer. And then finally, the book sale this past weekend Friday, Saturday, our two-day total came to $462. This is pretty average. Not too many people back here yet. It's not quite the summer. Kids are still in school, but it was still pretty good revenue. And I want to say thank you to all the volunteers that work these book sales and help raise money for the library. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Thanks, PJ. Okay, we have public forum. No action will be taken on any of the issues raised. If appropriate, the issue will be placed on the agenda for future council meeting. Speaker must state their name, address. They have 3 minutes. Anybody want to say anything?
My name's Tim Berg. I live at Bayview Lodge, which is 12038 Harbor Lane. I just wanted to make a comment in regards to the city sales tax and how that would maybe affect resorts. So at 1.5 in my average seasonal rate or weekly rate, you're looking to increase my charge to my guests about $50. I'd only bring this up because about a half a mile down the road, I have other competitors such as Boyd Lodge, I got Black Pine Beach, you got, Clamshell and Towering Pines. It's probably real no secret that resorts are kind of a dying breed around here, so it's our struggle. We're not looking for any sympathy. But I ask that when you're talking about this, Cross Lake sales tax, maybe we think about the impact it'll have on a resort, because $50 may not seem like much to you, but when people are shopping around, $50 means the world to them. So I don't want to get affected by that. A few months ago, I came up here and I kind of gave a suggestion on a way that you guys could find additional funds to help get some of these projects done. As of today, there's 272 homes on VBRO in the city of Cross Lake. That's 272 homes in the city of Cross Lake. If I go on Airbnb, there's 210. Chances are a lot of them are two in the same, but there's probably a few different ones. My point being is we have Lakeshore has taken action, and they provide permitting for people to be able to rent their homes VBRO. City of Pequot took that same action. I'm just looking at these numbers right here. The majority of these VBRO homes don't pay sales tax. That's the reality of it. The city of Minnesota wants to look the other way because they're all rich and they're all affected and they're cronies. They're losing out on millions of dollars. What's wrong with a $1,000 a year fee to rent your home in Cross Lake? VBRO, you're looking at $272,000.
It was brought up $2,500 at the last meeting, actually.
Yeah.
So we did talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, we're sitting on our hands.
We haven't lost it.
So I just ask that you do something, because
So 272 is a pretty accurate number?
as of today.
Huh.
I mean, so to sit and kind of do nothing, that's a loss, and we're looking to generate more funds. This is an easy way,
Yeah.
so that's all I got.
Tim, we respect your place in the sales tax, and that's definitely, we're looking into that seriously, so.
I mean, it's one thing, if you do the 0.5, I think that comes down to about $14, but if you're doing the 1.5, we're getting close to like $45, $48.
No, we're not talking any numbers. I just,
Regardless,
Yeah.
we're.
that's what another city did. And-
Sure.
And it was,
And I can appreciate this is just the
Yeah.
preliminary discussions,
Oh,
but you guys
very-
mentioned
very-
car dealerships and boats. Let's put resorts in that same category,
Oh,
so.
we need to hear it, there's no
All right,
question.
thank you very much.
You bet.
Thank you.
Okay, city attorney report. We're gonna,
Just looking for a motion to go into close for land acquisition.
I'll make the motion to go into closed session.
second.
okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So we don't close this meeting out?
Okay, we just did, and we're going into closed session now.
Look at this.
This thing works really good, Char.
Yeah, I want one of those.
I don't need this on anymore?
Are we going to the other room, or are we stay here?
No, I can.
No, no.
Yeah, we've gone that mayor's room.
Let's stay in here, I guess. Oh, okay.
We're gonna stay in here. Because there's so many, the whole committee is staying for it. Told me that's how it was gonna be. Yes, it is.
What I mean?
Because all these committee members are
Why don't you guys move up so we can, that camera.